Hi, my name's Chris Mabley. I'm a U.S. Forest Service lookout. I'm also a member of a group called GeodesyBase, headquartered in Sisters, Oregon. Recently, it was our pleasure to introduce a little tool called DragonPlot to the wildfire detection community at the Hinton Training Center in Alberta, Canada. Well, what is DragonPlot? DragonPlot is a remote location terrain visualization tool for the modern digital age. It's a tool for the future that owes a lot to the innovations of the past. See, there are two questions you need to ask yourself when you see that dragon, that wisp of smoke off in the distance. And those are, where is that? And what is there? It's called situation awareness, and if you get an answer to those two questions, you're well on your way to knowing what resources you need to send to what location in your initial attack planning. This is Ranger Gordon, looking dapper in fire patrol duty in 1909. Note his use of the latest technology. That was the Stone Age, so there are lots of stones around. And Galileo had recently invented the binocular. I'm kidding. But you see, back in those days, there was a keen interest, just as there is today, in developing new technologies and innovations to further the mission of fire patrol lookouts and fire towers. This is Sisters, Oregon, always on the cutting edge of technology, as it appeared in 1921. And by the way, Sisters, Oregon doesn't look too much different today than it did back then. What's interesting is that at about the time this photo was taken, about 50 miles away from Sisters, at Mount Hood, Oregon, a young forester named William B. Osborne was developing a rugged, portable alidade that he called the Firefinder. Now, I'd like to point out here that the vertical angle reading is already built into the design. In this model, a sliding peephole has the angle readings marked, and in this one, a single power rifle scope has a gauge off to the side. And this is years before there was any use for the vertical angle reading in wildfire location. That's because William Osborne was interested in another invention that was pretty hot at the time, photography. See, he knew that imaging was going to play an important role in fire detection and location, but at that time he could not find a camera that would do what he wanted to do. So in 1917 he abandoned the idea of the vertical angle reading and replaced it with this thing: a thumb wheel, gears, and a pencil. The idea here is that you could sight through the Firefinder and then physically draw the contours and landmarks of the view, ending up with a panoramic or scene area map, as he called it. And he found that even inexperienced lookouts could locate fires with more accuracy using one of these than with a topographical map alone. And I love this caption: with a panoramic map and a sighting device, any fire can be located with unfailing accuracy. William B. Osborne. It was a good idea, and you find even today in some fire towers these meticulously hand-drawn maps like this one at Lava Butte in Central Oregon that show the contours of the landscape, various landmarks, distances, and azimuths written on them, and this goes all the way around the top of the tower. Now, mysteriously, in 1934, we find that Osborne returned to the original stripped-down design of his Firefinder. A simple alidade, a little bit wider this time, with an improved vertical angle reading on the front of it. And this is the same Firefinder that we find in most Western fire towers today, like this one at Vedder Mountain in the Angeles National Forest. That's Charlie White looking through his 1934 model Osborne Firefinder. But if you look up in the upper right-hand corner, up over Charlie's shoulder, you'll find something very interesting. You see, in 1934, with his Firefinder in production, Osborne returned his interest back to photography, and he developed his very own large-format, swing-lens panoramic camera. This camera was capable of taking a 360-degree panoramic photograph from the roof of a fire tower. These photographs are spectacular, not just for their level of detail, but because across the top of the image the azimuth readings are printed right on them, and along the side the tilt angles above and below the horizon line, above and below the elevation of the tower. The idea is that the towerman could transmit his readings to the local ranger who, with the same set of photographs, could get not only an idea of the direction, but also the range, and get a visual image of the fire's location. This is the Firefinder system as it was intended to be used, and has been used for over 50 years. Which brings us back to Sisters, Oregon. In the late 1980s, early 1990s, in Sisters, an electronics engineer, a Forest Service lookout, and an Army professor of oceanography start playing around with digital elevation models, or DEMs. Their goal? To provide accurate position and orientation information from where the observer is located to a remote point in the viewshed, to build on and improve upon the Firefinder system. That's DragonPlot, the idea. To learn more about DragonPlot in practice, please join me in the next video, overview and tutorial.